Medieval studies is the academic interdisciplinary study of the Middle Ages. Development. The term medieval studies began to be adopted by academics in the opening decades of the 20th century. Initially in the titles of books like G. Coulton's 10 Medieval Studies, to emphasize a greater interdisciplinary approach to a historical subject. In American and European universities, the term provided a coherent identity to centers composed of academics from a variety of disciplines including archaeology, art history, architecture, history, literature and linguistics. The Institute of Medieval Studies at St. Michael's College of the University of Toronto became the first center of this type in 1929. It is now the Pontifical Institute of Medieval Studies, and is part of the University of Toronto. It was soon followed by the Medieval Institute at the University of Notre Dame in Indiana, which was founded in 1946 but whose roots go back to the establishment of a program of medieval studies in 1933. As with many of the early programs at Roman Catholic institutions, it drew its strengths from the revival of medieval scholastic philosophy by such scholars as Etienne Gilson and Jacques Maritain, both of whom made regular visits to the university in the 1930s and 1940s. With university expansion in the late 1960s and early 1970s encouraging interdisciplinary cooperation, similar centers were established in England at University of Reading, at University of Leeds and the University of York, and in the United States at Fordham University. A more recent wave of foundations, perhaps helped by the rise of interest in things medieval associated with neo-medievalism, include centres at King's College London, the University of Bristol, the University of Sydney and Bangor University. Medieval studies is buoyed by a number of annual international conferences which bring together thousands of professional medievalists, including the International Congress on Medieval Studies at Kalamazoo, U.S., and the International Medieval Congress at the University of Leeds. There are a number of journals devoted to medieval studies, including Medievaler, Comitatus, Vita, Traditia, Journal of Medieval History, Journal of Medieval Military History, and Speculum, an organ of the Medieval Academy of America founded in 1925 and based in Cambridge, Massachusetts. Centers for Medieval Studies. Many centers for medieval studies exist, usually as part of a university or other research and teaching facility. Some notable ones include the Center for Medieval Studies, Bangor at Bangor University, the Center for Medieval Studies, Bergen at the University of Bergen, the Center for Medieval Studies, Bristol at the University of Bristol, the Center for Medieval Studies, Fordham at Fordham University, the Center for Medieval Studies, Freiburg at the University of Freiburg, the Center for Late Antique and Medieval Studies, or CLAMS, at King's College London, the Institute for Medieval Studies, Leeds at the University of Leeds, the Liverpool Centre for Medieval and Renaissance Studies at the University of Liverpool, the Centre d'études médiévales de Montpellier or Centre for Medieval Studies at the University of Montpellier, the Center for Medieval Studies, Minnesota at the University of Minnesota, the Medieval Institute, Notre Dame at the University of Notre Dame, the Laboratoire de Médiévistique Occidentale de Paris or Paris Laboratory for Western Medieval Studies at the Panthéon-Sorbonne University, the Center for Medieval Studies, Pennsylvania at Pennsylvania State University, the Centre d'études supérieures de civilisation médiévale or Centre of Advanced Studies in Medieval Civilization at the University of Poitiers, the Centre for Medieval Studies, Prague at the Charles University in Prague and the Academy of Sciences of the Czech Republic, the Graduate Centre for Medieval Studies, Reading at the University of Reading, the Institute for Medieval Studies, Lisbon at the Nova University of Lisbon, the Centre for Medieval Studies, Sydney at the University of Sydney, the Centre for Medieval Studies, Toronto at the University of Toronto, the Pontifical Institute of Medieval Studies at the University of Toronto, the Utrecht Center for Medieval Studies at the Utrecht University, the Center for Medieval Studies, York at the University of York, the Medieval Institute at Western Michigan University, the Center for Medieval and Byzantine Studies at the Catholic University of America, the Centre d'études médiévales, Montréal à l'Université de Montréal, the Medieval History Research Center at Trinity College, Dublin, the Turku Center for Medieval and Early Modern Studies at the University of Turku,